My next guest is a young woman who is fed up with the race card. Meet a woman who doesn't believe in the privilege game. Welcome to another episode of Conversations. This is the show where we talk about anything and everything. Today, I will be talking with Melissa Tate. Melissa is an activist, she's a writer, she is an immigrant, and she cares deeply about America. So help me to welcome Melissa Tate to Conversations. So Melissa, you have a new book.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Carol.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.
And you're from Zimbabwe?
Yes, correct.
How long have you been in America?
I've been in America for about, I guess it's about 18 years now.
So you came as a very wee child.
Yes. I came to the United States to attend college. So I came at the age of 19 from Zimbabwe to attend college. I ended up meeting my husband here, and that's why I ended up staying.
So where did you attend college?
In Missouri, in Kansas City.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've become very conservative, very outspoken about America and what you see taking place in race relations.
Yes, I have. So I've actually always been conservative. I was raised in Zimbabwe in a very Christian conservative home, which is very typical in Zimbabwe. Most people are very Christian and conservative. So when I came to the United States, I immediately kind of identified myself as a conservative kind of Republican person. So just lately, I've just kind of been noticing the racial rhetoric that has been taking place in the United States, and it prompted me to write my book.
Well, you know, when I look back over a much longer span of time about race in America, it seemed like we were making a lot of progress. And I would say that there was optimism, especially when President Obama was elected. We talked about America being post-racial. What happened?
Well, that's actually what I kind of noticed, because when I came to the United States, this was probably around in 2003, there wasn't really this racial tension and this whole racial rhetoric that was taking place in this nation. I only started noticing it maybe halfway through President Obama's administration, that I started to hear this rhetoric of, you know, race and racism.
That's when critical race theory really took off, and you got so much on the college campuses with political correctness, microaggressions, safe spaces, trigger warnings, all of that nonsense.
And that's when I started noticing it, and I was like, President Obama ran on wanting to bring the country together racially, and I felt like during his administration, that's when I started to see more racial division, and I think it was very much triggered by his rhetoric. So I feel like that's kind of when there was a turn in the United States toward this kind of racism and racial division that started taking place within the nation. So.
And for yourself, so your awakening to America and its racial tensions, you started noticing back then during the Obama years. When did you become so outspoken about it?
So, I mean, I became more outspoken politically when President Trump started running during the 2016 primaries or the 2015 primaries. Initially, I was very much, you know, being a conservative, I was really excited about the 17 Republicans we had running. I was very much in favor of Ted Cruz and Ben Carson. But it was during the first debate that I fell in love with President Trump because I just loved the way he stood up to the media, and I thought, okay, this is the guy we need, because he's going to be the person who's going to be able to stand up to the left and the media and the entire establishment. So that's when I started to become, so I actually just joined Twitter because I wanted to follow him and kind of hear what he was saying, because I was hearing on the news, well, candidate Trump tweeted this, candidate Trump tweeted that. So I was like, I need to follow this guy and hear what he's saying for myself. And once I got on Twitter and I started interacting with other conservative, and I started tweeting my own thoughts as well, then I started growing a following, and I kind of, by default, kind of became a social media influencer I guess, by
And you
accident.
have a pretty large following, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have close to 500,000 followers now on social media collectively.
That's a lot of people.
Yes.
And are you just on Twitter, or what other mediums are you on?
I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook, and then I'm also on Parler and Gab and Telegram. So I'm kind of
all of those as well now.
Yes.
Now, have you experienced any lockout, shutdowns, Facebook jail?
Yes, absolutely I have. So I've actually been suspended from Twitter a few times. My Instagram account has been shadow banned. Facebook has already blocked a lot of my...
How do you know? I mean, I have a sense of when you're shadow banned. I think I was or have been at times. But how do you know your Instagram is shadow banned?
Well, I just compare it to the kind of engagement that I had initially. So, you know, having 82,000 followers on Instagram, I expect a certain level of engagement. And I did have that engagement, but during the 2020 election, I started noticing the engagement went way down.
Right.
And now it's all of a sudden it seems like it's back up again. So
well,
it seems
it's nothing. You're not a threat anymore because the election has been decided.
The election has
been. So why
been
suppress anyone?
Exactly. So now everybody's celebrating on Instagram because people can see their posts again.
Right.
So yeah. So it's a real sad commentary of the United States when you see the type of censorship and the type of suppression that is taking place of speech for any type of ideology or speech that doesn't agree with the establishment and the establishment left.
Well, you know that Facebook apparently lifted its ban against political speech and I guess social positions, social causes, just last Friday, and there's so many people whose businesses have depended on that, so they're really celebrating. And for conservatives, like, okay, so we got banned for months. What do they think is going to happen right before the 2022 election?
It's probably going to happen again.
And who, you know, like we all knew that President Trump's Twitter account was going to be shut down. It was just a matter of time.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he's the biggest threat to them. So, you know, him being silenced on Twitter is something that they've been wanting to do for a long time. So.
Well, some people say that he had an opportunity while he was president to pass that Section 230 that would have reined in the big tech companies, and that he just believed that they would never, ever, you know, shut down his account, and so he doesn't have that opportunity now.
Yes, absolutely.
To restrict them in any way.
Yeah, so President Trump, you know, he was one of the greatest presidents that we've had, at least since Lincoln, in my opinion, and he accomplished a lot of things. But I think that was kind of one of his blind spots when it came to censorship, internet censorship, that he didn't do as much as he could have done during the time that he had the power to do it. And then also, I think, you know, just Republicans in general hadn't really seen it as a threat, as something that is really suppressing speech and something that is, you know, affecting the way Americans see the world. So I think a lot of people just didn't understand the power of social media. They didn't understand the power of social media giants being able to suppress speech. Right,
and hopefully, you know, more people are familiar with it now, and that they will begin to take action. But I'm not 100% optimistic that will be the case. We're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll talk more about these issues.
Okay, sounds great.
We'll be right back.
Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain is made possible by Cooper Steel, a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Cooper Steel believes in sponsoring Carol Swain because we believe, as she does, you build strong, you stand strong.
What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles. Cooper Steel is committed to excellence, responsibility, and community. Cooper Steel's motto is, build strong, stand strong. They treat their employees and customers like family. Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. Learn more about our generous sponsor at coopersteel.com.
I'm back with my guest, Melissa Tate. Melissa, you have children?
Yes, I do.
How old are they?
They're 9, 7, and 4.
And so are you homeschooling, private school, public school? How are you dealing with education in America?
Actually, my kids go to a Christian private school. It's a classical Christian school, so they're being classically educated. I'm very passionate about getting kids out of the public school system because I feel like it's indoctrination. They're not really learning. Particularly within the last 4 years, the left used to wait till college to indoctrinate children, and I feel like they've intensified their indoctrination.
Oh, no, it starts in K through 12 now.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and literally with sex education in kindergarten.
Yes, and it's horrific. So so this is something that I'm really passionate about, particularly with Christians and conservatives, because I say, Christians and conservatives are always complaining about the left, but then they drop their kids off at school and leave their kids in the hands of a liberal for 8 hours a day for 13 years, and then they wonder why, when their kids grow up, they hate God, they hate their family, they hate the country, and it's because they're being indoctrinated. So
Well, I have some bad news.
Okay.
There are a number of Christian schools that have been taken over, and they are not safe places. And I believe a lot of parents, they assume, when they're writing that check to the private Christian school, whether it's a college or K through 12, that child is safe, and that's not the case. Those places have been infiltrated.
Well, absolutely. So that is something that I've actually seen as well. And the reason why I actually became passionate about this was because I was starting to see how the church and Christian schools were starting to adopt a lot of the secular ideology,
Well, social justice.
Social justice.
Once the social justice gets in there, that's the camel's nose under the tent.
Yes.
And they have no idea what they're dealing with.
Exactly. And I think the reason is because, Christians, they just want to do what is right. So when they hear this ideology from Black Lives Matter and social justice, they just latch onto it like, this is the right thing to do. But then it comes into the school system, and then it starts to, take on a different form. So I've actually been dealing with that as well with the Christian school that my children go to. It's a very conservative Christian school. However, there are a couple of teachers that were starting to teach about white privilege and starting to talk about
social justice warriors.
Social justice warriors, and we had to nip that in the bud. So we actually formed a committee of parents that wrote a letter to the board of directors of the school to tell them that we are not going to put up with this because we pay a lot of money to put our kids in a place where we want them to have a biblical worldview and not a worldview of what the world is teaching, which is the critical race theory, which I think is a very demonic ideology in my opinion.
Well, we know it's tied to cultural Marxism, and it's it is very secular.
It is. It's definitely
And I think it's
Marxism.
dangerous, and I believe that it harms every child.
Absolutely.
Because it results in bullying and shaming children because of the color of their skin.
Exactly.
And there's some people that seem to believe that, white kids are immune to being shamed and that it's okay to do it to them. And, that's not logical. If it's unacceptable to be done, to black and brown kids, why would you think it would be okay for white kids? But it's also, I would argue, against the civil rights laws and the Constitution. And there are people who are filing lawsuits, and more lawsuits are going to be filed, as they should.
Yes, absolutely. And, the Civil Rights Act protects white people as well.
Well, they don't know that. They think civil rights is something, they've been told that it's just something for black people.
No, absolutely not. It protects white people as well, and no white person should be putting up with that level of racism. And it not only hurts white people, it hurts black people as well, because what it does is it's telling children from a young age that because of the color of your skin, you are oppressed.
Right.
So when my son was 3 years old, we took him to a Catholic Montessori school. For a couple of years, he was at the school, and then we received a notice saying that they were going to have a guest speaker who was going to talk about white privilege. And at the time, this was maybe like 6-7 years ago.
Right.
I didn't really know what white privilege was, but immediately I was like, what is this all about? So I went and I started researching it, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is what they're going to be teaching children? So I was just like, so you're going to tell my son that because he has brown skin, automatically he's oppressed and he's somebody that has to look at himself as less than his white peers?
Isn't that really a white supremacy argument? Because they're saying that all white people have a property interest in their whiteness, and that this property interest, puts them in a dominant status as an oppressor. And all minorities are victims, because they're part of the oppressed. And to me, that is white supremacy, for anyone that would believe it. And the other thing that's very troubling, they tell white people you have to consciously become anti-racist. And what that means, for kids that go home from college, is they're supposed to confront grandma and grandpa at the Thanksgiving table if they say something that's politically incorrect.
They're creating social justice warriors, and what you just said is the irony of it all, because the ideology itself is deeply racist and it is deeply white supremacist, in my opinion, because basically you're telling children that this child here, because he's white, he is superior, he is not oppressed, he's oppressing you. And for me, when I look at that, it is creating what's the word? It is creating a mindset within the black, a stigma, yes, a stigma for the white children, and then it's creating a mindset within the black children that is very counterproductive. Because the Bible says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if you're thinking of yourself as oppressed, so immediately you're creating a mindset that is going to create, that is going to manifest a reality of that child, never trying to be anything more than what you have prescribed, that you have already labeled them as. So.
You're right. It's very destructive. We're going to take a break, and when we return, I want you to talk about your book.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
Dr. Carol Swain's Be the People, a call to reclaim America's faith and promise, newly released in paperback and audio with a new introduction, is a challenge to all Americans. If you are serious about being the best citizen you can be, this is the book for you. From addressing moral relativism to reclaiming the future, you'll understand why Dr. Swain is one of the most relevant voices in today's culture war. Are you ready to reclaim America's faith and promise? Purchase at bethepeoplenews.com/books or wherever books are sold.
The Biden administration's executive order on immigration brings to the forefront one of the most volatile issues of our time. In this timely second edition of Debating Immigration, I join my voice to that of other experts to provide you with facts and information that will help you understand what is at stake for our nation. This edition offers 21 original essays that cover race, religion, economics, human smuggling, and civil rights.
Purchase at bethepeoplenews.com/books or wherever books are sold.
I'm back with my guest, Melissa Tate. Melissa, tell our viewers about your new book, and what the title is, Choice Privilege.
Yes.
When did you write the book? Why did you write the book? And what's your aspirations for it?
Okay, so the book is Choice Privilege as opposed to White Privilege, because I believe that it is the choices that you make in life
that gives you privilege.
Right, exactly.
You have to explain that, though.
Well, so the reason why I actually wrote the book, I was prompted to write the book during the George Floyd riots.
Okay.
And what really pushed me over the edge was seeing my church posting stuff about Black Lives Matter and pasting Black Lives Matter all over
Everyone just went crazy with Black Lives Matter, and they got multi-millions of dollars, and now we know more details about George Floyd, and multiple autopsies that say that the knee on the neck did not cause his death.
Yes,
It was
absolutely.
drug overdose.
Exactly. And just seeing the reaction from people that were close to me, including, you know, my own pastor, my own church, I could tell that a lot of it was coming from ignorance, because I'm somebody who keeps up with politics. So
Well, it's emotion. It's good
Yes.
as anything else. Everyone was driven by emotion because the media kept playing the clips and his last words, and you know that he couldn't breathe, and all of that.
Yeah, it was full media manipulation. So just seeing people fall for that and fall for the Black Lives Matter narrative, which is based on a very false premise. And I understand this because I follow politics, but I understand that, you know, a lot of people, Christians, you know, a lot of family, friends, they don't really pay enough attention to politics to understand that, you know, what they were buying into is a very destructive ideology. You know, the Black Lives Matter, they're a Marxist organization. They are not a civil rights organization. They shroud themselves, you know, they cloak themselves with that idea, so people just think it's the right thing to do. So I just felt inside me, I felt the Holy Spirit say, write a book about it. So I was like, okay, I will. I'll be obedient and I'll write about it. So I wrote the book basically to arm mostly conservatives and Christians with the truth about this ideology, the critical race theory ideology, the Black Lives Matter ideology, and the claims that they make, just shining a light on the fact that they are using false claims and a false premise to create this whole ideology that is based.
Everything was birthed on a lie. You know,
Yes.
my hands up, don't shoot. Never took place.
Yes.
Never happened. And the thing about the political left, they're so gifted or effective at naming things. And so the slogan, Black Lives Matter, is a truth statement.
Yes, it is.
And so a lot of people that don't follow politics, and a lot of white people, they believe that they can show that they care about black people by endorsing Black Lives Matter organization.
So everybody believes in the essence of Black Lives Matter, and that's the genius of the term, because you believe in the essence of Black Lives Matter, now you're believing in the entire organization, even though it is an organization that does nothing for the black community. It is a far left.
Doesn't even share the money with the local chapters of Black Lives Matter. In fact, there was a lawsuit against the main organization because they got multi-millions of dollars and didn't share.
I think they got, was it $100 million or something like that, or 10 million?
By now they may have $1 billion.
They might,
but
yeah.
They giving themselves very generous salaries and not doing anything for the black community, as Marxists do, and you expect them to do.
Exactly. All the communities that they have destroyed and burnt down, not a single dime has gone to rebuild.
Well, let's
any
talk
of that.
about, you've been to D.C. lately, and they have Black Lives Plaza, and you walk in that area near the White House, and there are these stores and things that are still boarded up. So you have stores boarded up, and then you have all these signs, Black Lives Matter, and it's just such a huge contradiction, because the city, to me, has been destroyed. It's a place where I used to love to go, and you go to Union Station. I don't know if you've been there lately.
Where, in D.C.?
The train station, Union Station.
No, I haven't been, but I remember going there, and it was a beautiful station.
Had, you know, it had great, fantastic shopping.
Yes.
Stores, you know, that you could buy clothes, you know, that didn't look off the rack. It was it was a great place to shop.
Yeah.
I was there recently, and most of those stores are closed. They had an Ann Taylor and an H&M. Those were the big box stores. But all of the little boutiques and places I used to love, they were closed.
Oh no!
It just looked like a ghost town.
Oh no, that is so sad. Yeah, I know the atmosphere in D.C. is
And Black
very
Lives
sad.
Matter, they've controlled everything. And the White House, like, they only have 1 or 2 entrances that you can get in now. Everything, they have controlled everything as far as the city being locked down.
Oh no, no, it's terrible. I mean, it's a Marxist takeover of the country from within. And that's what people need to understand, is that, the Black Lives Matter is just part of the left's way to divide the nation. It's divide and conquer. It's the whole Marxist ideology of the oppressed versus the oppressor in order to create a, balkanization within the country so that there is no national identity, so they can easily take over the nation, which is really sad. So,
when will your book be out?
It's actually out for pre-order on Amazon and on my website as well. And then it is going to be released on March 27th.
Oh my!
Yes.
That is great.
Yes. It's coming right up.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, what do you see as like one of the key takeaway points? And you've written this book to be read by what kind of person?
Well, I think it has a little bit of something for everybody, but really I was writing it for Christians and conservatives.
So you don't have to have any type of expertise to be able to understand what you have to say.
Right, exactly. So I kind of was deliberate about trying to make it very easy to understand. So I try not to get too much into the weeds with the academic side of.
That's important.
Yes. So it's a very easy read. A teenager could read it and understand it, and I think it would be great to have this book in the hands of young people so that they can understand that this is a weaponized ideology that is designed to destroy the country from within, and it has nothing to do with helping Black people. In fact, it hurts Black people. If you really want to help Black people, you need to be championing things like school choice, so that Black people are able to go to schools that are better than the public schools that they're, that are run by Democrats, that are graduating kids that can't read and write, that are being set up for failure the minute they graduate from school, and they don't know how to read or do math at a third grade level. So those are the kinds of things you should be fighting for, and not supporting, things like Black Lives Matter and critical race theory and ideologies like that. So.
Well, what kind of message do you have for people that see the police as the enemy of Black people and this whole defund the police movement?
Well, again, it's a far left ideology. It's got nothing to do with Black people, because when you actually look at the statistics, you find that 81% of Black people want more police
right.
in their community, because the police is actually protecting a lot of Black people. I have a friend whose husband is a police officer. He's white, and he puts his life on the line for a lot of Black people that are in neighborhoods that are very dangerous, that are being assaulted by other Black people, and he's there to protect them. So a lot of Black people, 81% of them, want more police in their neighborhoods and not less. So there's a disconnect between, Black people in their neighborhoods and the activists that are put all over media as the representatives of the Black community. No, these are not representatives of the Black communities. These are just activists, far left activists with Black faces on them that are put out there as the idea of what Black people want. But when you actually go into these communities and you speak to the people that live in these communities, they want more police because they are living in neighborhoods that are, extremely dangerous, and having less police is going to put their families in danger.
You are absolutely correct. And I'm so happy that you were able to be on Conversations today and tell us about your book. And I applaud all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dr.
And so
Carol.
maybe once the book is out, we will have you back on, and you can talk about the reactions you've received from people.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Carol.
All right.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
For those of you who would like to know what exactly our children are facing in their education system, this is a must-read book. It will equip you and prepare you to make decisions about your child's health, about your child's education. So I want to encourage every one of you to grab a copy of Dr. Swain's book and join with me and Carol on the front lines in this critical time to eradicate the liberal abduction of our children.
I'd like to thank my guest, Melissa Tate, for her courage and as an immigrant coming to America and fighting so hard for our country. And I would like to thank you for tuning in to Conversations. And it's so important for all of us to get informed. And one way to get informed about concepts and philosophies like critical race theory is to read the books of people, who have studied it. They understand its destructive impact on our society. And to the extent that we educate ourselves and stick together, we can change our nation for the better. See you next week.